audio if you want.
Okay, for now I'll mute everyone else's.
Mike, should we start, or you want to do a couple of housekeeping things first?
No, I think we're good. I've started recording, and I think we're good to go. I will just switch. We'll go with the agenda here, and I might switch back and forth between the PowerPoint.
Okay. So I'll get started then. So welcome, everyone. This is our Fall Leads Teleconference. We do this once a year, and then we meet in person, of course, in the spring. We're going to be meeting for up to an hour and a half today. And just in terms of housekeeping, we're going to try to ensure everyone is muted while the speakers are talking. I think those of you who have logged in with your computers or using audio on your computers, I don't even know if you have the option of talking. But those of you who are using a teleconference option, if we can't mute you, if you can mute yourself while we are speaking. And I guess we can also use this as a sound check. So the voice quality is being described as a little crunchy. I will try to speak.
You're pretty. That sounds better already.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to be less crunchy. Maybe that means enunciating and speaking slower.
And my voice is very faint, but it might be that you're a little close to the mic.
And while I'm talking, Mike's mic will be muted, and vice versa. And feel free to use the chat at any time to provide feedback on either voice quality or questions as we go along. We'll try to pay attention to it. All right, we have a reasonably full house here. So I'm going to get into the agenda then. So the way we structure our agendas is mirroring kind of the work plan. We have 5 program areas. So a brief update on program leadership. We're going to spend a good chunk of our time on data acquisition, data access. Quite a bit has happened over the last few months. But let me start with program leadership. So just one update. We do have a new team member. Shreya Nemani is going to be picking up where Julie Lamb is leaving off. Julie has taken a full-time job elsewhere. And Shreya actually is based in South Africa at the moment. She's normally in Ottawa, but she's in South Africa at the moment, and she may try to log in. She's 6 hours ahead. Shreya comes to us with a background in data analytics. She did a stint at Statistics Canada, so she knows her DAs from her CTs, and she'll be providing us with a range of analytical and website support. It's difficult to hear
Michelle,
yes.
Do you want to try again, just like maybe stepping a little bit back from the mic because it's loud and still quite crunchy?
Okay. I'm talking into my laptop. Is this any different?
A little better.
All right. Well, maybe I don't have to speak so loudly.
That does sound better.
I'll continue. So on the membership update, we're at I think 33 consortia at the moment. There's some pretty active conversations going on with a new consortium in Alberta. Kind of a everybody but Edmonton consortium, a bit of a donut consortium. That's evolving. And we haven't been spending too much time on recruiting new consortia. We've been really focused on StatScan and the data. And we also are developing a partnership with 211, and I'll let Mike speak to that briefly, what's going on with the 211. This picks up where we left off at the annual meeting where we had a presentation from the 211 folks.
Yeah, again, there still unfortunately isn't a whole lot to report there. Still just trying to get a meeting going, to be honest. But we did I attended their annual general meeting. Some of you probably got that email where I asked you for some feedback and for some thoughts on what to present. That was certainly constructive, and we did talk a bit about where things could go with the partnership. I know certainly that, as was made aware to me by people like Heath and Anna, and for them that the use of their data, I think, is something that they're concerned about, having a collaboration, can be done in sort of a trusting, developing a partnership in a very collaborative environment, that they know that the downstream use of the classifications and categories that they've developed will still be respected, that people can rely on the data downstream just as they can when they're getting it straight from 211. So still to be continued, essentially. Currently, we are talking with them, trying to maybe obtain a pilot, ideally for all of Toronto, for all of Ontario, but given certain limitations, we may have to start with just Toronto. And recently, we were informed by Jasmine in Calgary that talks have begun there about trying to set up similar access to the 2.1 data. So this is something that is seen as a good opportunity. We don't typically pursue data sets that are only available in a limited number of provinces, but this is seen as a high-value data source and a good opportunity for partnership and to help help them be there as this data set becomes more available, and ideally this is going to become more available across the country, and we can be there while it's happening.
So why don't we move into more?
I know it. I'm not sure if you have a comment there, Heath, because I know Heath has been some utility in having a shared approach to classifying the data. Exactly. Wanting to make sure that there's agreement in how the data are classified. Thanks, Heath. Michelle, you were saying?
Yes, I was just saying this is early days, and so I'm looking forward to hearing the substantive part of our data acquisition, which I think you have some slides you need to set up.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and get into that? So this will be an overview of what's been acquired over the last 6 months, and then what's coming up over the next few, and getting a sense of the pace that we can expect from Statistics Canada as well. So,
unfortunately, I am going to jump around a bit from document to document because a lot of it, didn't fit very well in a slide deck. And I am preparing a document for leads and any members, which, as requested, will give more of an overview of what we've received, what we're getting, what we would like to get. I'll try to get it set up in a user-friendly document that people can dive into the details if they want. But can also give you an idea of what you're getting. Before doing that, before getting into like the Schedule B, this speaks a little bit to data usage. These are numbers that we typically like to present. You've got your new users by consortium. This represents what has happened between April 1st and the end of September. So Northern Ontario has been pretty busy, and Ottawa and region as well, Nova Scotia, Toronto. I believe this continues on the next slide. These slides will be made available so you can always have a look and see what's going on. new member organizations. London leading the way there with 6. They recently sort of expanded into Elgin County. Data downloads by user. Out in Vancouver, Lorraine's been pretty busy. Heath, you're number 2 here. And then you can see down the list, since April 1st to the end of September, we've had close to 2,700 data downloads. And then by member organization, maybe that's a little better. And then looking at it by product, you can see that the postal code conversion file is quite popular. Certainly, since we've acquired the commercial license, that's made things a lot easier. There have been some concerns with the quality of this. It seems there certainly is something that Environics Analytics added to the PCCF that people like, the error checking. It's Canada Post doesn't really claim to be on top of all the missing postal codes to the extent that Environics Analytics is, but just to remind you, we can't use the Environics Analytics version of the file. So target group profiles, popular. You can get an idea of what's popular there and what people's interests are. So I'll get into acquisitions quickly. Again, sorry, I'm going to jump to another document because it doesn't really work very well. Doesn't really work very well in a slide deck, and this is something that I'm going to be working on. So just quickly, I hope you all can see my screen. I'll keep an eye on the control here if you have any comments like you want me to go back up or not. So this is just a quick rundown of what we've received, again, since the beginning of this program year. We got from Statistics Canada backdated tables that were meant to replace the family table 18, which had the low income data. So this is family table 19, family table 20, and the individuals table number 13. So that goes back to 2005, and then we got our regular order of standard T1 family file tables for 2016. So, and these are listed here. Again, so this includes, these two tables include the new low-income tables. And then for census tables that we have received, I'm going to stop for a second just because we are in between. I'm just going to check the comments. Clarify, the backdated T1 family file tables are to account for the new method of measuring low income, right? Thanks, Jasmine, for clarifying that. Yeah, sometimes I take for granted what is common knowledge, because we talk about some of these things a fair bit in the data purchase and acquisition working group. So as you may or may not know, the T1 family files have a new methodology for calculating low income, the low income measure. But we have some blog posts and links to articles on the website. You can always contact me for more information, but it's information is also given in the catalog entry. But thanks for that flag, Jasmine. Appreciate it. Yes, so census tables. This has obviously been, this continues to be a big priority for the program, and it's clearly something it's a big priority for a lot of people because it's moving somewhat slowly from Statistics Canada. We have these 3 tables have come in since the beginning of the year and are cataloged. And then just this week we received these 3 tables. This one is a standard table that's available online, but not at the designated place. This is based on a standard table, somewhat standard looking, but actually there isn't something online. And then this table features the new admission category and applicant type for the immigrant population. So I think that will be of interest to a lot of members. Another comment, hold on. Yeah, I apologize. It was kind of messy with in here listing all of the sort of the universe and the geographies, and with the intention that excuse me, that I would link to more details in the document that I'm producing. But these will be going down, certainly all of them go down to the census tract and go down at least to the aggregate dissemination area. I can go and have a look now. They would go down to at least to the aggregate dissemination area. A number of them will go down to the dissemination area unless they are too large, where anytime we wouldn't get dissemination area is because either it simply doesn't make sense to be cutting, the working group has identified that census subdivision and census tract are sufficient, and usually when that's the case, it's because there's a number of crosstabs that are just simply too specific and would create too much suppression at the DA level. And typically that also ends up being, I shouldn't say typically, but in cases where where they come back to us indicating that acquiring these tables at the dissemination area would create too many splits and make it too expensive, then we just go down to the aggregate dissemination area. And then we have acquired these non-census tables so far. This first one, we'll be getting another update to low-income cutoff later this year, I believe. Building permits, postal code conversion file, you're all familiar with, and the business counts is another popular item. And that is everything that we have received at standard geographies. So it's certainly not as much as we would have liked to have acquired by this point. It may be, we can talk a little bit more about that back when I discuss what is to come and what we're expecting.
There's quite a bit of a background noise. I'm wondering if
there is
if people on the phone can mute their mic.
it's going to be one of us. It's either you or Catherine, because I've muted everyone else. So then tables that we've received at custom geographies. So I've gone over the standard geographies. And so just to indicate what communities we have going at custom geographies, this group is being referred to as round 1. Includes members plus the Ontario Local Health Integration Network subregion. And then currently in production, we have this group of what we're calling round 2 geographies. So for both round 1 and round 2 geographies, we have these files in, and these just came in this week for round 2, and they will be cataloged shortly. That's the profile and the age by single years and sex. And currently, we have these 12 target group profiles for only the round 1 geography. So these were identified as high priority files. You know, I'm going to just switch to menu control so that I can see comments as they come in. And so we've received, for round 2, we've received these 2 files, as I said, and then we should begin receiving these files for round 2 geographies before the end of October. It was the estimate that we were given. That hasn't been confirmed, but this was their sort of loose estimate. Customers of the catalog. You know, if I can get to it tonight or tomorrow, or if Shreya lands in her travels, then she's scheduled to do it. But that shouldn't take long to do it all, because the catalog entries are already created for them. So I was just answering Jasmine's question there. When do you think the round 2? So that sums it up. That is what we've acquired so far. And then, you know, looking forward to the rest of the year, I wonder if it helps if I zoom out a little here. I'll go over what we have in production and then what we have asked Statistics Canada for. So currently, we have the activity limitations table once again in production. We've received it twice and sent it back with errors. The details of the errors are indicated in the minutes of the last working group meeting. But we need to get a good working version of this table to be able to define activity limitations for a number of other tables. So that's still to come, and unfortunately I have no estimated turnaround time on that yet. You'll notice a theme in all of our tables is that we have a lot of custom tabulations being made, and there's a limited number of analysts that can work on these tables, and so that contributes to the delays. I won't go through all of these in detail. Just try to give something of an overview. I'm just going to check the comment. Yes, Albert, I'm gonna send a copy of this document, I'm thinking probably more in possibly an Excel format that would let you link to, the details of the tables. It's just this doesn't really lend itself to presentation in a slide deck. Yeah, so this table should be arriving in the next couple of weeks, ideally, and then so going down, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 more tables.
Mike, what does NEAT stand for?
In production. I'm going to go back to. Sorry, I've gotten that before, and I really should. If you can maybe see by the dimensions, it's not in education. Sorry, not employed or in education or training. See, everyone's like jumping into. That was Michelle, you're saying, right? It's not my voice making your ears bleed. Yeah. Everyone goes on. Yeah. Thanks, Natalie. Sometimes all these abbreviations can be confusing AF. So this is what we have, essentially in the queue. How about I jump? I'm going to just finish. I'll finish quickly what we can expect for the program year, and then jump back a little bit to this production lineup. These are at standard geographies. Currently, the only tables that we have, I'm answering Margaret's question, are these tables at standard geographies or customer both? So what we have so far, this is all standard geographies. What we have in the queue for custom geographies essentially are these 14 tables. The semi-custom profile here, the age and sex, and then this list of 12 target group profiles. And this will likely production of these tables for all of our custom geographies is likely going to take us into the new year. So if we assume that round 2 production is going to end, maybe end of November at the earliest, or beginning of December, and then we after that we still have one more round. Ideally, we would wrap up table production for custom geographies with one more round of production. Because after that, we shouldn't be looking at that many more custom geographies. And to hold up now everyone else's custom geography, we would like to move on with more tables at custom geographies. And so we don't, ideally we won't have a round 4. I can't, we can discuss with the working group or with this group what might precipitate a round 4 production, but I think at that point we kind of have to draw the line because this is taking a long time, and we need to move on with more tables of custom geographies. This is a priority for the program. So if we assume that round 3 production will begin, let's say, and again, I'm guessing somewhat here because we haven't even really gotten turnaround time for round 2, but roughly could say that we should begin to receive these 12 tables before the end of October, and given how long it took last time, end of November, beginning of December, we should be done receiving these 12 tables at custom geographies. By then, geocoding for all of the round 3 people should be finished, signed off on, and we begin, hopefully mid-September on this round of table production at custom geography. And that would take us to, say mid-February to get all of those tables done, these 14 tables for round 3. And so then at that point, so all this is to say, I mean, I think you're probably interested. It's useful to discuss these timelines, which again I want to stress are not confirmed. But then the working group is going to be, we can choose the next highest tables on the priority list, but I think the working group, and I'm sure some of you may have some thoughts on what should be produced next at custom geographies. And it will be, it will have to be something that we've already ordered, or we should get the specifications worked out before that point, because we don't want to hold up the custom geographies, to make a new table. But it'll be it'll be a table that we've already ordered or that has already been produced. And I think by that point, we should be able to do round 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time. So why don't I put a little action item here that this document will include rough timelines, such as the ones that I just described. But again, so round 2 ideally done by the end of November, beginning of December. Round 3 begins to be finished perhaps by mid-February, and then the next set of tables. Okay, that was a bit of a long segue answering the question whether these tables are at standard or custom geographies, but this, perhaps reviewing this list should provide some check, unfortunately, on expectations for both what we can receive at standard geographies and what we can receive at custom geographies. I don't think that this is again, I was going to go through these, but why don't I just keep going on? Bottom half of the table coming in the future. Yeah, I can do that, and then we can discuss sort of generally timelines and what we can expect in the general situation, how the pace, how things are going. So we do have a T1 family file custom order in the works. It has been a bit more difficult this year coordinating discussion with income division on our T1 family file custom order because they are more implicated in the census order now. But we have a set previously. There were the 5 most popular tax filer tables we received at census subdivision geography. One of which was family table 18, which will have to be replaced by the 3 new tax filer tables, those I-13, F-19, and F-20. And then we have custom tabulations that we receive from as part of a T1 family file order. And we've started a bit of back and forth on what can be done and what can't. I don't have the details listed here. Can certainly, we have details in some of the notes from the working group, but can supply those on request. That's something that should be delivered certainly before the end of the year, but it seems like production could begin soonish on this. Continuing with T1 family file tables, there's one more. I was going to call it a standard table, but I'm trying to remember whether this is Statistics Canada went back and forth on deciding whether this was still a standard or whether they're making it custom. At any rate, we're getting it, and that should be available before the end of the month or in early November. And then continuing with tables that we typically get each year, we get the second installment of Canadian business counts, get labor force survey estimates. There's the intercensal population estimates. Those will be for 2018. Get those sometime before the end of the program year in 2019. From the Caledon Institute, get the welfare incomes summary, and again, Statistics Canada keeps giving us documents summarizing the various low-income lines. You're looking at bottom half of the tables coming in the future. Yes. Yeah, of note here are these 3 target group profiles, which seem to have slipped through the cracks somehow in our order, but are back in the production queue. And I think a topic of discussion for the working group, which has a meeting at the end of this month, is to where in this production list it should be placed in as far as priority.
You are at the 30-minute mark.
Okay. I'll try to. Okay. So this is to give an idea of how production is going. There's a number of tables here. For example, okay, I apologize, CTP1 is missing from this list. One more table which should be arriving soon. Yeah, let's discuss that in the working group meeting. Thanks, Jasmine, though. A number of these tables were submitted. I mean, for example, CPP1 was submitted at the end of November, at the end of November last year, as soon as they were able to start taking orders for all of the various census topics. This production list has stayed the same. I mean, we've been chipping away at it, and this is, the custom geographies is sort of a separate production group right now. But this is what we've gotten this year from that production list. There were other ones. There were other tables that we received in last program year, sort of at the end of the program year. But if I was to estimate what we could see before the end of the year, it's quite possible that we won't finish this list, or we might just finish this list of what is in production. Hopefully not. I mean, we do have, if we want to go down, this is what we have. The list continues of tables that we have asked Statistics Canada for. These are household level target group profile tables. Just to clarify, target group profiles come from population of individuals, and so we were looking to have target group profiles produced at the household level. And currently, their analysts, for quite some time, have been telling us that they're testing these tables to see if it's possible to produce them. It's, we could, overspenders here being spending more than 30% of your income on housing costs. And then, I mean, we could ask if the testing be made a higher priority. And then we've put in requests for cost estimates for all of these tables, and this list is fairly long. So we have thrown at them more requests than they have capacity to produce. If things continue at this rate, we are still on track to spend our data acquisition budget, and the T1 family file custom order is going to be a bit of a high ticket item that will eat up some of that budget. So we're on track to acquire what, compared to these would still be considered a healthy amount of data, but there is understandably frustration on all parts regarding the pace at which we are acquiring data. Wrapping up, yes. Okay, well I think that's about everything that I have to say. Sorry, I guess I've spent a bit of time on the data acquisition. I will quickly tell you where we are with the working group. So I mean, we've been meeting monthly. The meetings are well attended. We have, a number of well-engaged members. Their work, again, I have to take time to thank the people that are contributing. They add significant value to this program, and I encourage all leads to at least be on the email distribution list for both working groups, as we don't require any participation, but you may be interested to see what we're talking about. But again, just thanks to everyone who's doing this. It really adds a lot of value to the program. Obviously, the census order is dominating discussions. There's been a lot of work to try to maximize the value and usability of the tables to the users. We get into the specifics of the table. There's discussions on the applications. What is it you're trying to get out of this table? How is this going to be used to affect policy or whatever our members may be interested in using the data for? It's pushed the order in many ways towards like a high-value tables with maximum usability to the most number of users. Again, this does have some impact on the timing, the pace of the order. The alternative, we have explored alternatives in getting standard tables. The working group, which would have faster turnaround. We identified some standard tables last year. A couple standard-ish tables, I will call them, this year have been identified and acquired. But this is the tables that I've pointed out are the ones that have been identified as high priority, and I think that the working group is doing great work in developing this order. I just, I won't get into all these topics. These are just some of the topics that we've covered in the working group. Certainly the National Poverty Strategy and the Market Basket Measure is one that is of increasing importance to the working group. And again, you can check the minutes. Yeah, I'll wrap it up there. Sorry for I
forewarned.
a little over with my time, as I've been known to do. But I'll pass.
Okay, and actually, I'm going to hand it right off to
Pass it back.
Mary.
Although I guess at this point we.
So, Mary, just keep in mind there's going to be a short presentation on the Waterloo Consortium proposal.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll have to enable Mike.
Sorry, who's gonna do that?
I believe it's going to be Alex Ross.
I think it's Ross Graham.
Right, Ross.
Yeah.
No, it's Ross Graham.
Okay.
From the Waterloo Consortium.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a minute to transition. But yes, Ross, I have you on. Okay, so I am just going to take us through mostly just the webinar lineup that we've got organized for the fall. I just wanted to bring this slide up to remind everybody. So these are the 4 categories. We committed putting on 4 webinars per program year. And these are the 4 categories we'd like things to fall into, just to spread them out, make sure we're covering different types of approaches to building capacity to work with the data that we have in our catalog. So I'm going to go through and just let you know what we've got lined up. This year, I think it's going to be really great. We're getting a lot of input from the members of our working group that are going to be more involved this year, I think, than they ever have been with the webinars. So I'm looking forward to that. We have our program orientation coming up on October 23rd. This is the just basic orientation of the program. It's a good reminder for any of your members who maybe have been inactive, but then especially for new members as well. This will include a brief jump onto the website itself, downloading some data and actually looking at it in Beyond 2020. And Blair from WDG is going to facilitate that. So we're going to actually have her sort of walk through something she's actually done with the data as a way to introduce the website and catalog. So I think that's going to be a really good introduction to that. That will be recorded and put up on the website too, so you can use that in any of your local consortium meetings if you would like to do it on your own time. Regarding the CDP profile, so this is where we sort of get into the data itself. Coming up in December, we're going to hear from the new initiative, which is the Canadian Housing Statistics Program. This is a new program that they're coming out with, a whole new round of housing statistics. It's being rolled out mostly around Ontario and BC, but I hear that more is scheduled to come. So we're going to hear about what they have. They have a data release coming up just before that in early December, so they will be able to specifically speak to the data that's just come available. And this is open data from StatsCan, but this will be a chance to ask them also about what is coming and what sort of the full program lineup is going to be in the next few years. In March, we're going to try to get a webinar going with TransUnion. The style for this is we're actually going to have a group, a small group, meet with a couple of TransUnion. Yes, Jasmine, you're right. Thank you. I'll address that. We're going to have a small group of people, particularly probably people out of the Data Purchase and Access Working Group, as well as a few of my working group members, who are going to meet directly with TransUnion and maybe do a 30-minute session where you get to ask questions and just get a bit more information about the data. And then out of that, we're going to prepare a webinar that will be open to all the membership. And so that will be a webinar led by a couple of our leads. So if you are interested in TransUnion, or if you've already spent a lot of time in TransUnion and would like to get a bit of your a bit more information or questions answered, or you're just happy to take some leadership on letting other people know how to use this, please get in touch with Mike and I, and we're going to get that going. I've got that in the lineup for March because it's going to take a little while to get through those steps before we have a webinar prepared. So that's sort of on the to be determined date in March. Under transforming data into intelligence, so this is looking at analytical tools and different tools for making the data actually appear how you want it to. And thank you, Jasmine and Heath. I got the date wrong there. It's not November 9th. It's actually going to be November 6th. Heath has developed a really interesting spreadsheet to work with the target group profiles. And so he's going to be leading what we're calling a workshop because it's less of a presentation. It's really a workshop to learn how to use that tool. The tool will be distributed beforehand. And this is the first time we're actually going to market this webinar to an intermediate data crowd. So this is not going to be a brand new user workshop. This is going to be for people who are comfortable with Excel, can build a few charts, have worked with Beyond 2020 a bit before. It's not going to be a crazy advanced session, but it will be for the intermediate crowd. So we're going to see how that goes. And because we're doing that, it will be more hands-on. So we're looking forward to that, and I'm hoping that's going to go well. We've already had we've had a small group working on that workshop with Heath to try to iron out some of those kinks. And I think it's going well. Yes, Heath, the timing is probably something goofy about when I put in the times because I'm on Pacific time. It's not registering correctly, so it's translating for Eastern time. But all of the webinars happen at 1 p.m. Eastern time so that we can accommodate the entire country. So that is true for all of them. Coming up in January, we've been recommended a presentation from Ottawa on 3D Excel maps. This is with the Central Down Community Housing. So we're going to invite them and ask them to do that presentation for us. 3D Excel maps is a nice tool that would be good for our users to know how to use. And in February, so the data charrettes are more the category of let's see what each other is doing. And so in February, we're going to hear from what I'm calling big data for small and rural places. This is a couple of people who are working with the Rural Ontario Institute and the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And they're working on projects called Big Data for Small Places, as well as Data Analytics for Rural Transformation. So they're going to present these initiatives to us, but also they're looking for sort of the next steps, which would be developing some partnerships, and they're looking at a mentoring program to come out of this. So hopefully this will just be another step in leading towards more people using data as well, and that we can oh, thanks, Michelle. And move forward. So that's temporarily scheduled for February. So our fall webinars are confirmed time-wise. We're just going to start rolling those out, and then the winter ones are to come for exact dates. The new thing I want to draw your attention to is a webinar we're going to put together for, it's led by leads. So we're calling it the webinar for leads by leads. This is an idea that came out of our annual meeting. We had a round table that we called How to Run a Consortium. And this was a chance just for everyone to share any kind of struggles they were having, and then as well as the successes that were going really well in running your consortia. We wanted to just put this webinar on to let you guys not only talk about what's going on with your consortia and things that are happening within your community data program community, but also just a chance to take advantage of this network of people. You all have a lot to offer each other, and we just wanted to give you a forum where you can bring up any topics of interest that you want feedback or support on from everybody around you. So the idea would be to do a round table, and then you the leads would be able to submit anything you'd like to onto that agenda. We'll get the training and capacity building working group to just sort of process the agenda, put it together, and we'll get a couple of the leads to facilitate it, and that'll be it. And it will be only for the leads. So I guess we're looking for a bit of feedback if that sounds like something you guys want to attend. And then also some feedback on dates. I think the best way to do it will be by doodle poll. We'll put out a few dates and see when we can get the most of you involved, because I think it is something you want to be there for live. It's not going to be a great afterthought, although I think we can probably record it and have it available for you later, but certainly we want to get as many of you involved at the time as we come. So you'll be hearing more about that via email for input on both the date of when we can organize and get that going for you guys, and then also for input onto the agenda itself of what would you like to talk to with the rest of these leads. And it really can have nothing to do with the community data program. This is really just a chance for you guys to connect and discuss what you want to talk about without us creating an agenda that we need to get through, which is what today's purpose is. So look forward to that, please. I think we're going to, let me just pull up my agenda here. I think we wanted to hear from Waterloo now. But if we don't mind, maybe I can just finish mine and then I'll pass it off to Ross, if that's okay. Okay, sounds good. So just a quick update on the training and capacity building working group. We're meeting just a few times a year. We do some feedback through email in between. It's been great. I'm getting more participation, and we've got a really good group of people with a lot of know-how participating, so that's great. And like I said, you're going to see them a lot more involved in the webinars this year. The other thing we are working on within that working group is looking at what kind of ideas, what are the possibilities for workshops to have before our annual meeting in May. And so last year we did the Wednesday afternoon before, and we're looking at what are the possibilities for this year. There's two ideas for what we're looking at. One is doing the workshop, which should not particularly be for the leads, but be for the local consortium. So we're going to be in Calgary, so looking at what can we put on that would be interesting for the members of the Calgary consortia to come out. And just a simpler thing for once Calgary's organizing the Leads meeting, it's a good chance for them to get their local consortium out and what kind of workshop can be put on for them. And then also an afternoon again for Leads and for just you guys, and what do we want to get through, what's an opportunity for training or learning that we could do in that afternoon. So those are the major things coming up for us in the next little while. And I'll also say thank you very much to my working group members. They're very patient with me and my scheduling issues, and I'm getting great feedback and lots of support. So that it's making this very smooth.
Thanks, Mary. And so we're going to hand over for maybe about 5 minutes on a short presentation on a Waterloo Consortium study proposal. And I want to welcome Peggy Taillon to the room. And Peggy and Mike will be joining us. I guess their item will be in about 10 minutes or so, maybe 15.
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everybody.
That covers off our sound.
So Ross, if you're
Hi, it's Ross here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, great. Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. So we sent around a proposal to everyone that hopefully you've had a chance to look at, or if not, you will. The proposal really was for we came up with thinking of a brief study, and it's really about a follow-up to the discussions that happened when we met in Guelph, and some of the items that were just talked about how there's great interest in the idea of how do you run a consortium, and there's great value in talking about that. What are you doing between the leads? And when we came back from that meeting, said, you know, that's really interesting, but I wondered if we want to go even a little step further and look at if there's interest in looking at what appears to be most effective. The purpose being, where can we as leads and national as well focus its energy on those areas that appear to be most linked with effectiveness? And that we probably have there's a pretty good sample of us or population, given that there's about 33 consortiums, and many have been operating for a few years. So we've got a good group to examine this topic with. So that was of great interest to us, and we sent it off here locally in Waterloo. We sent it off to national. The proposal was developed by us. We sent it to Michelle and to Catherine, and they expressed some interest and thought, you know, it would be a good thing to maybe bring it to this group for a couple reasons. First, to get a sense of, would that be of interest? Do you share our interest in that topic? This wouldn't exclude the discussions about what's everybody doing, but just give us a bit more information in terms of what appears to have been to be most effective. Is it related to size? Is it related to face-to-face meetings? Those type of things. This isn't going to be, it's just to give us, you know, I have no illusions that this will be really groundbreaking information, but just to sort of give you a playbook in a sense of, are there any things that come out really strongly as being tied to having an effective consortium? So the proposal was developed by us, by Michelle and Catherine, and a University of Waterloo professor who researches this area, who's really great and keen to be on board. And the methods, as you'll see, is pretty simple, non-invasive, thinking that we've got, CDP National has a lot of data on each consortium, so we would review that. Then we'd send out a short lead survey, and then we'd analyze them to look at any relationships or associations between those variables, meaning, and variables mainly being the things that we do, you know, do you have face-to-face meetings, what type of things do you do, and the things that you can't really change, population size, things like that. So it's a pretty simple study, and thinking that it could have some high value for leads and for CDP National. So we don't have a lot of time, but wanted to get a sense from everybody, would there be of interest in doing this? Because we don't have to do it, and it won't hurt our feelings if we don't want it to go ahead. Would this be of interest, something like this, to you? And then if yes, if the group thinks yes, would there be a couple of you who may be interested in joining to create sort of a project steering group so we can really make sure that the questions we ask, the things we investigate are as useful as possible to the end users, being us. So I don't know, Michelle, if you want to have a discussion or do it in the chat, get people to
Do you have any time frames in mind?
or against it, or you want to just do another way? Well, I think once we get a sense at this group whether people want to go ahead or not, then I could put out another call, or you could. I mean, everyone has my email address. You could send me an email if you'd be interested, and then we could pull together that small group and create a more specific timeline based on people's capacity. There's no real urgency around this, but I think it would be useful. I mean, this would be useful information in my mind to have going into that sort of round table around talking about how do you run your consumer.
I mean, on the surface, it is hard to say no to that, and we have a poll being set up now, so we will do a quick poll now. But what's your sense of being ready to share even preliminary results if you go ahead with this? In terms of timing. Yeah.
You mean if it went ahead, like, what's the timing? I mean, for us, we're ready to do it, so I would say if we got a small group and we did it in a collaborative way to develop the survey and to put it through ethics, that would take a few months. And then to administer the survey, we'd want to give you a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks to a month to administer it, and then analyze the data. It wouldn't take too long. So,
is it reasonable to aim to have any results reported at our annual meeting, for example? In May, end of May.
Which would be in the... Yes, absolutely. Yep, that's very reasonable.
All right, well, you're seeing what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the poll results, or are they not broadcast yet? I mean, I'm an administrator. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I can see we've got about 75% are interested, and or about 70% are interested. Oh, it's dropping a little bit. And
is there a cost?
Ross,
1/3 not sure.
Sorry, Ross, this is Mary. Yeah, I was just thinking it
that
might be helpful for the
good
leads
enough
to know if
for me.
Is there a cost to them as far as, you know, time or input that you would like to have from them? And then Jasmine has a question of, I think she's talking about costs as money costs as well.
Sure. So there's no cost to participate. Of course, it would just be in time. So if you have the capacity and interest to be part of the small group, then that would be a bit of your time to do that. And then to fill out the survey, I mean, I think we put some draft questions in there. I'm picturing about 10 minutes. So no, this is really lean, nimble, non-invasive. No, there's no.
Well, it sounds like there is a strong openness to it with a few questions just to make sure, I guess there is, what's the value and in terms of time. So it sounds like there should be some follow-up from here. And if you want to, Ross, if you want to just answer that last question from Sonia.
Great. Would you be all consortium members or randomized stuff? We were just, off the top of our heads, talking with Catherine and Michelle and Art, thinking that we would send it to the leads who would best know about how the consortiums have been run instead of the users. But I mean, those would be the types of specific things that we would suss out among the kind of project steering committee. So it looks like there's interest. So then if you want to email me, anyone who would be interested in being part of the project group, and then we can fine-tune the tool and the process, the method, and that would go through ethics, and then and we can keep the whole group updated. And then we would.
And then the question about costs coming out of the CDP budget, and was that clear? Yeah, sounds like there's no financial cost. It would be really some time on the part of contributors. I'm just reading off the questions here.
Is the CDP funding this? No, this is being done because the region of Waterloo wants to run a really effective consortium. So we're interested in spending some time on this, and we thought some of you would share that interest. So it would be you, if you want to become part of the steering group, then then that would be you volunteering, I guess, or your
That sounds good.
organization giving a bit of your time to participate in that.
Why don't you leave your email address in the chat box, but we will take some initiative on our part too at the CDP.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody.
Great, well thanks Ross. Mary, are you done on the training capacity building?
I am done. I've covered my stuff. I guess I could just say, anybody who would like to join us is more than welcome to. All the meeting minutes and everything are on the website, but if you want to come and be part of the discussions, we always have room for more, so just let me know if you would like to.
Okay. I'm going to provide, we'll keep monitoring the questions if they come in, but I'm going to otherwise move to the networking communication. Just a short update. We have reference in the agenda to the LIPS, that's the Local Immigration Partnerships. We have a relationships with the National Coordinator of Local Immigration Partnerships, which is based at the City of Calgary. This is a 2-year pilot to see what it would be like to work with a national network where there's some overlap with membership in the program, but not full overlap. And I did want to clarify 2 things. Some consortium leads may be approached by a local immigration partnership with a couple of questions. And one has to do with what's involved in being a member. Apparently some LIPs are hoping for a free membership. Membership is as it would normally be. We have an annual fee that CCSD applies, and then some consortia have various ways of adding, including some cost sharing with members. So that's at your discretion, really. There is no intent for a free membership. And then there's also some questions about custom geographies. We are not planning to provide, in principle at least, not provide any custom geographies to non-members. If a LIP is a member of a consortium and they've had a chance to articulate a custom geography requirement, they of course are welcome to do that, but our focus is really to provide some custom tables at standard geographies on the topic of immigration to non-members through this arrangement. So that's something that may come up for consortium leads. Just want to clarify that here. So that's just a short update on this arrangement with this national network of local immigration partnerships. Community snapshots, we are continuing to provide, we try to provide monthly updates on how each of you as leads and some of your members are using community data. We continue to encourage you to provide us with, even if it's just an email with a link to something you're doing, we'll prepare the profile, like a 1 or 2 pager, but we have close to 400 organizations. We'd love to hear from all 400 as to how they're using community data. So just a reminder to, at any time, let us know how you're using the data from the program. And reference was made to our annual meeting. So it will be in Calgary in May. Tentatively, we're talking about the 22nd to the 24th of May. I guess that's towards the end of May. We're just trying to get confirmation from Calgary. Jasmine, you were going to sometime over the next few weeks, maybe just confirm that those dates will work. If those dates don't work, it'll be plus or minus 1 or 2 weeks. So you can tentatively put May 22nd to 24th. That's a Wednesday to a Friday. Definitely Calgary. And we'll confirm that date within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that's it on networking and communication. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip the status of membership fee invoices, other than to say we think some went out. Just let us know if there are any issues with your members on the membership fee invoices. But we are going to get an update from Peggy Taillon and Mike Toy. They're both on the call now, and we'll just do a sound check. So Peggy, I think you've already done your sound check. I'm going to hand over to you and Mike. Mike Toy, if you want to try your, I say Mike Toy because there are 2 mics on the call. Mike, did you want to try your sound? Yeah, you are good. Okay, I will hand over the reins to the.
Yeah, can you hear me? Great.
Thanks so much, Michelle, and thanks everyone for giving us a little bit of time on the agenda. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. The first thing I want to say is it's great to still kind of be part of this and to hear about the great work that you're all doing and the great community development work you're leading across the country. And it's also really heartening for me and the team to see that we just keep expanding and growing, and that the impact remains really strong. So I hope you all know how invaluable the work that you're doing is, not just for your organizations, but certainly and more importantly for the communities that you serve. As you know, and I know some of you are new leads and may not have met me in the past, I've been involved with CCSD for a number of years, and when CCSD was, when I came on board to CCSD, I came on board as the president and CEO, literally walking into what I didn't know at the time was a perfect storm with respect to a number of things that were happening at the national level with respect to funding of national organizations, particularly those with a social policy research focus, and some significant restructuring around funding priorities for the government of the day. Over that time period, and it was around 2009, between 2009 and 2015, where there was a lot of turmoil that we faced. CCSD was one of the organizations that lost 85% of its revenue through the process of eliminating federal grants to organizations like the CCSD. And for those of you who don't know the history of the CCSD, it was founded in 1920 by Charlotte Whitten. So it is actually one of the longest standing social policy evidence-based organizations in the country. That being said, it's been a very challenging period, and despite the revenue shift, we a small group of us remained, and we continued to press forward, and really we're focused on supporting the CDP and the great work that you're all doing, because we understood its value and its power, and the opportunities that it was creating, and that there were a lot, and that we were only scratching at the surface then, and that it could conceivably continue to grow and evolve. So we really felt that we were going to remain kind of vested and involved. That being said, when you're down to very little revenue, you're working virtually out of home offices almost as consultants and volunteers. It's only sustainable for so long, but we kept on because we didn't want to lose the work that we were doing. We didn't want to lose the voice and the perspective and the history, and we also wanted to make sure that if we were in a position to perhaps transition the CDP over to a partner to keep it going and then deal with the future of the CCSD as an entity, we wanted to make sure that we could find the right partner, the one that understands the value of the work that the CDP does, the art of the possible, the potential that it has for growth and whatnot. And so we kind of kept on as the secretariat, and it's really been Catherine and Michelle's team that have really done tremendous work to keep things going. And I've been kind of working away in the background trying to figure out ways to bring other revenue and keep things rolling and keep things afloat. But we're kind of at this really interesting opportunity where one of our board members, Mike Toy, who's on the call, is also the president and CEO of SEDNet. And I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about their mandate and where they're at these days. But SEDNet is in a really great position in that this is a real period of growth for them. And they've got tremendous capacity. And over the past few years when we were talking about transitioning the CDP and finally addressing what we do with the CCSD, SEDNet always came up as our favored option. And so over the past several months, Mike and I have had several conversations. I've had conversations with his board. He's had several conversations and deliberations with his board. And SEDNet is now in a position where they'd be willing to host the CDP, and which would mean that we would move the whole program over as it is today to a new host. So very little from a day-to-day basis would change for you. Michelle and his team would remain involved. Catherine has committed to remain involved. I said I would even sit on the board of the SEDNet and remain involved as a champion if need be. But we're right now kind of in the process of working that through, and so we really wanted to give you an update on that. It's our hope that we can transition this in such a way that you actually don't even really feel any impact as our valued members of the CDP. And I'm just going to let Mike maybe say a few words as well before we open things up.
Sure. Thanks, Peggy. So just for people who aren't familiar with the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, we're a national association, membership-based network of largely community groups, but all sorts of, there's some foundations, municipalities, government agencies. It's a really eclectic group of folks that I think share pretty similar vision and values of enabling communities to have greater control and agency over their own developments, kind of subsidiarity, making sure that there's greater power and control over that local people have some greater control over their future and direction. So we actually, as Peggy said, there's been lots of feeling of commonality and synergy over the years. We haven't done an actual look into how many consortium members might also be SEDNet members, but thanks, Michael, for just posting Mike Dieter just posted the link to our website there. You can see our membership and history. But as Peggy said, we're quite involved in many areas around creating economic opportunities for local members, but the bottom line is really enabling local actors to have greater control over their social and economic development. So I think there's a strong alignment with what the CDP is doing, the vision and the values for the data program. And there's also, as Peggy was saying, the CDP is working really well. SEDNet exists to enable our members to be more successful in what they're doing. So transferring the administration of the program to SEDNet is really simply about enabling the CDP to continue on with the excellent practices and growth it's been doing, and then potentially later on, making connections with some of the files that we're more active in, such as the social innovation, social finance strategy, or social enterprise development, whatever, and the new poverty reduction strategy, et cetera. I think there may be opportunities that can be created nationally, but for the time being, it's primarily ensuring a stable and strong footing for the CDP to continue.
Thanks, Mike. And just to make sure everybody heard me initially, Mike has been sitting on this CCSD board for a number of years. And I also just wanted to invite Catherine. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to say, given you've been working so much closely with the CDP team.
Well, she doesn't have audio, but she's typing.
Yeah, Catherine might not be able to speak. She'd said earlier on in the chat box.
Oh. Okay. So you know that Catherine has been an invaluable asset and certainly has kept me apprised. I'm not sure if you all realize that I'm running two organizations and I'm a single parent juggling a lot of things. So I wasn't really very hands-on, but I knew that CDP was very much in good hands with Michelle and the team, and certainly with Catherine. I kept a watchful eye on things, but I was really confident that you were all kind of moving in the direction that you needed to go, and that if there were any major issues, someone would wave a flag and I could intervene. Oh, and Catherine is saying she's happy to follow up later. So I don't know if people have
certainly if anyone wanted to ask any questions on the chat, some of you might want to digest this information and send an email later. We could have a follow-up discussion if that was merited, but there are some questions I'm sure that are going to come in next couple of minutes.
And you can all also reach out to me individually if you wanted to talk offline or whatever. I'm totally available to any of you. But it really is our hope, the idea of the transition with SEDNet, because of our close working partnership and the fact that Mike has been on the CCSD board, is really to make this as seamless as possible for all of you. And so the nuts and bolts and everything, all of the mechanisms that are in place now would remain as it transitions over to CEDNET.
So
yeah, that's a good question from, is it Jasmine? Yeah, so I'm meeting with our board, and we're trying to figure out what the next steps are for CCSD, but one option would be that CCSD would cease operations. And the authority around the transition is really, it's a management decision. It's really myself and Mike with the approvals of our board to make the transition over to the CEDNET. Yeah, the current model of the CDP is really self-sustaining, and we've been really acting as basically an administrator, secretariat, and paymaster for you. And no, I don't think the CDP is a money losing, and I think that that there's lots of opportunities for growth and potential revenue generating opportunities. Jasmine. And I also think that CEDNET would be a great mechanism to help explore some of those opportunities given their mandate and their mission.
Yeah.
And yes, CEDNET would function similarly to the CCSD, except with one great difference, Jasmine, is that CEDNET actually has a much stronger infrastructure than we do at CCSD in our current state. And Catherine's also responding, if you can see that in the text chat.
So in terms of Jasmine's question about why CEDNET wants to take it on at this time, I think it's a confluence of circumstances. I was familiar with the program through my role on the CCSD board and the great work that it's been doing, and was aware of the need for a potential alternative in terms of its continuity. I raised this with the CEDNET's board of directors and looked at the potential alignment with our strategic priorities and our mission and mandate. And as I mentioned earlier, I think there's strong alignment with the vision and values, as well as to some extent even the membership potentially. Given that we have the capacity, as Catherine said, as well as the kind of the outlook to be administering a program like this, which we've done for other projects such as Social Enterprise Toronto, which is another separate sort of standalone program for which we've been a trustee. I think we're in a strong position to continue to take over, to play the role that the CCSD has been doing so well for the last decade or more.
I think that's a great question, Karen, and I think that there are lots of opportunities around branding, because I think it creates an opportunity with the transition to really think about some of those things around positioning and that sort of thing. And I also love your question about the social determinants of health. I actually sit on the expert panel for the social determinants of health at FAC, and I've constantly brought the CDP up as a great capacity builder to the work that they're doing. And that panel right now is kind of reconstituting itself, and there may be even some formalization of a partnership on the data side with them and the development side with them in the future.
So for Jasmine's question around membership, I don't think we've thought specifically about how that would work in terms of aligning the membership. For my starting point is basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as we said, we want this to be seamless in terms of continuity in terms of your experience and your budgets and the products and services you're getting. So I think the starting point would be there would be no change to the fees that you're paying currently, and we would try to work out what that means in terms of a SEDNet membership or not, if that's appropriate, or simply right now the membership fees that consortium members pay go directly into the CDP budget, I believe. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So, I mean, so that's just a straight sort of contribution to the CDP budget, and that wouldn't change.
Continuity of branding would be, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And obviously, we would do a very good communications piece around all of this, and we'd take your advice as to who in our kind of universe needs to get the communique. And again, I would also make myself available if any of your members or consortiums needed me to call in or meet. Like, we can certainly do that if need be. Again, I want to make this as seamless for you as possible.
Yeah, I think that's what I was referring to, the per-organization membership, which we would keep the same. And there's no intention to change that.
Yeah, again, what we're trying to do with the transition is keep the program intact and keep the approach and the practices that have been in place. They would remain consistent with the transition. We're not trying to create any, additional costs or any kind of complication.
Yep. I'd certainly be open to that, and I suspect my board members would be. Ross, in terms of your question about having a data consortium person on the SEDNet board, as Peggy mentioned, she has indicated she might be available for that, and we could look at whether it's her or someone else or more than one person that could join.
So just a question from Toronto. I'm in the process of just scheduling a call with the CCSD board, and Mike has already communicated significantly to SEDNet. We've engaged a lawyer to assist us with the transition. We can give you an update with respect to timelines, if that's okay, just if you can just give us maybe a week or two, because that way we can come back with you with much more firm timelines. Yeah, so I think we reflected that there likely is some of your organizations that are members of SEDNet, so it'll be interesting to do that analysis. I'm not saying that that the transition would take place in a week. I'm talking about the various meetings that need to occur and the agreements that need to be in place. So I would imagine that it would probably be kind of end of calendar year, but we'll give you a firmer timeline if you can just give us some time to kind of have our board meetings and some other meetings with the lawyers.
And just so you know, we don't have any, our call will not end suddenly. People can stay on as long as we need to, because I see some more questions are coming in. We'll just leave this open until we've exhausted the questions.
Data consortium return on investment in communications. I I think there are a number of potential synergies, as I mentioned, both around sort of opportunities and our existing infrastructure. And so those are things I think we can explore over time. The first priority is just making sure everything stays stable in terms of the excellent work that Michel and his team are doing, and Catherine and others, and making sure that the consortia continue to have the supports that you have now. And then later on, once things are sorted out and we're on track, then we can look at what additional benefits or how the program might be able to take advantage of the opportunities that could be created through this.
So my question for Peggy and Mike is, how would you like us to communicate this further? This meeting was really just about leads, sharing some information with leads. And I'm wondering what you would see as a next step from a communication point of view.
Well, I think formal communication will come. We really wanted to respect your leadership and your involvement and commitment, and so we wanted to advise you of what we're doing. There's a number of steps that need to follow, and then we'll communicate out to you, and at that point we would indicate that you can then share it broadly. Obviously, you all have obligations to your host organizations that you're all employed with, and by all means you can let them know that this is in the works. But things will be much more formal in the coming weeks.
That's perfect.
We'll definitely be keeping you in the loop. No, so Sonia, what we're hoping to do is just grandfather everything for this cycle so that we actually don't need to do any new agreements. That's one of the things that the lawyer is helping us do. That's why if we can just do the transition and minimize the amount of additional, duplication or triplication of work for this cycle. So that is really our goal. I think the Jasmine question is to Mike.
Yes, there are a few municipalities. I think there's a larger number of individuals who work in different municipal departments across the country that are members on an individual basis, and I could look into that. I know there's people in Edmonton and Vancouver, Saskatoon, and a few others. There's I think a number of others across the country, but it tends to be more difficult for municipalities as organizations to pay the fees or to sign up, and so that's why you see fewer organizational logos. But I think we do have some good inroads among individuals working in municipalities across the country. In terms of StatsCan, I'd say we don't have enormous expertise, and I don't think we pretend to. That expertise is obviously with Acacia and Catherine and you folks. Our role in here is really an enabling administrative function to act as a solid foundation for the program to continue its success. So I
certainly have some good working relationships with them at the more senior levels, and would do whatever I needed to do to help you all in throughout the transition process and beyond with respect to anything at StatsCan as well.
Thanks. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, Michelle and the team, I think everything is, steady as she goes is my approach. And Sonia, for your question, I wouldn't be looking to change anything at this point. The goal is to continue and build on the success that the program had to date.
So what we've talked about at the highest level is keeping everything the same, the fees, everything. So we're not going to be making any changes to anything at this stage because what we want to be able to do is just make this a very seamless, easy transition.
So I think we might be winding down in terms of the questions, and we can stay on for another couple of minutes. Here's another one that just came in, but maybe we can, yeah, if maybe we'll wrap up the next.
Yeah, I agree. That was the promise that we made, is that we will follow up with formal communications and timelines. We just have a number of things that we need to do before we get to that stage, but obviously you're key to all of this, and so we'll make sure that you get the information that you need as quickly as possible. That's correct. You're right, Jasmine. The host organization is transitioning the program to another host organization.
So Peggy and Mike, I assume there will be more questions that come in over the next few days. They might come to us. We'll just forward them to the two of you. Would that be okay? Sure.
Can I just respond to Jasmine's question? Jasmine, you can at any time you could withdraw, right? So that remains. If you were unsatisfied with the transition or the approach, it's well within your right to withdraw. I certainly hope you don't, but any of you could withdraw at any time. You're welcome, and like I say, we're available if you need any one-on-one or you have any follow-up questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as some of our internal processes are complete with a much more formal communications and timelines.
So Peggy and Mike, thanks so much. That was obviously extremely helpful and appreciated. Thanks for taking your time. And it sounds like questions are done for now. But as Peggy has said, please feel free to ask any questions. Anything we receive, we will share with Peggy and Mike Toy. And we'll be in touch with all of you over the next couple of weeks.
Thanks much.
Thank you.